It can't even move diagonally except to take a piece. It can either move up or down one time unless it is taking a piece, which then it can move forward diagonally. It usually, when you're playing the game, it is the pawns that end up usually being taken almost automatically. Usually, you lose every pawn. And my dad taught me something about chess. He said, if you let him have every pawn except one. In fact, the guy Tchaikovsky, who you may not know, is the world's most famous chess player from Russia. It is called the Tchaikovsky chess play. Because if you can keep one pawn on the board, you can play forever because it's hard to catch every pawn on the board. In fact, my mother and my sister told me this, they would be driven crazy by my dad because he would only play with that one pawn endlessly while they were trying to get every other piece on the board. And all that time, he was asking my sister about her boyfriend and asking my mother what she was going to cook next, where they were going to go next, having all kinds of conversation, because it'd be the only time, according to my mother, that my dad felt that he could get a word in edgewise with my mother. Now, I'm not sure that's true. I don't know. My dad had a lot of gifted talents. He was a person that did some modeling in Europe. He worked in the service in the army. He was an army man, sir. He did a lot of things. He was a manager over a state store. He did a lot of things. And he also was a jazz aficionado. So he knew everybody who was in the jazz scene in Cleveland, and he could listen. I'm sure he had his gift. That's where I get it from. He could out-talk probably everybody. But he loved talking to people around the chessboard. And my mother would tell me that when he used to try to teach me how to play, he would try to give me little lessons about life. And they would always be around three big things I want to offer you today before I finish my text by showing you in Luke how pawns matter. Here are the three. One, people are valued. People are valued. There was never anyone who he met who he did not initially call Sir, Madam, Mr., or Mrs. That's where I get it from. If you're ever in front of me, you know. It took me a long time to call you what you wanted me to call me because I got that from my dad and from my mother. Just Sir, Madam, Mr., or Mrs. It's just a way to build bridges and sign respect. Number two, he'd say, stay in the game. Sometimes you want to quit, but just stay in the game because you never know how the game may end up. He beat me every time, but he let me stay in the game nonetheless. And number three, ready for this? Ready for this? Never doubt your ability to do something. To this end, you've read the story, I've read it both full and in part. You know that in Luke chapter 16, verses 19 through 31, we are told by Jesus, by the way, if you ever get a Bible and look at those red letters, this is Jesus talking here. I want to tell you something. I want to be a little bit intellectual here for a minute. In Luke verses 19 through 31, Jesus is here doing what we call, listen, he's giving what we call a parabolic message, which is he's using imagery to try to make the point about something that has pertinence and value to him. It is not a literal story. So I want you to understand something. Yes, Lazarus was a real creature, a real figure in this time, but his image here is to teach you something not about the death of Lazarus, but about the life of us all. He mentions Moses because he wants us to understand that there's nothing new under the sun. The lessons he teaches us is something that you have to master, not just for the moment, but for the endurance of your journey. There are some things you should never not learn. I try to tell young people all the time. Older people your respect. That hadn't gone away. But you know, it's hard for us sometimes as older people to remember that younger people will listen to you if you give them respect. Works both ways, doesn't it? You gotta sometimes be reminded that lessons are lessons not for some people, but for everybody. And then the third thing I want you to know is, so we talked about Lazarus, we talked about Moses, but we haven't talked about the leader. Notice Jesus does not spend all the time talking about how great he is. He's too busy trying to tell them how to help somebody else when they're in a moment of trouble. Just in case you forgot the story, it's the story of Lazarus who finds himself in a predicament. He has done some things that he shouldn't have done. As a result of that, he has had judgment placed upon him. Unfortunately, he does not live in this world. And according to the fairy tale story, what we find out about Lazarus is he has transitioned from this world to the world yet to come, known as eternity. And as a result of that, he's not in the eternity that any of us want to be in. Because of his own situation, he has found himself in what we call Hades. You missed it. Pawns matter because they are positioned in a place when you play chess that they cannot get to on their own. Lazarus is in trouble not because, if you read the text, of what he has done, but because of what someone else has done. Just a cautionary tale for you. This is real practical. This sermon is almost done. I just want to tell you something. Some of the people that are trying to get you to go somewhere you may not want to listen to. Some situations that you're invited to, you may want to decline the invitation. Everything that looks good may not be good. I told one young lady yesterday, when I went somewhere, she said, "How long have you been married?" I told her how long. She said, "How long she put up with you?" I said, "As long as I put up with her." She said, "How do you keep married?" Here's the key. I said, "Watch this." I said, "Put all your money in one pot so everybody can see what's happening. And I don't care how mad you are, as long as they're not hitting you in the head with a frying pan, go to bed together. Even if you're mad, just turn over and keep going to bed together, because a couple that stays together is a couple that stays together." But they got to be worth staying with. Lazarus did not figure out that the men and the people that were in his space were not worth staying with. It does not mean that you think of them less than. It just simply means that some people aren't worth staying with. If a pawn in chess could tell you not to move, it would. It would tell you, "Don't do that. They're going to jump me. I'm going to get taken. Don't do that." But sometimes we made the decision to do stuff on our own rather than pause and think about it. My mother would tell me sometimes my dad would wait 10 minutes. He would go get a soda, go drink the soda, go take a walk, come back, and then look at the chessboard and say, "I need some more time." Because some decisions deserve some prayer. My first point. Some decisions deserve some prayer. I want to ask you something. Is there something you really need to do? Something you're facing? Is there some circumstance, some relationship that you really need to pray about? I didn't say you need to think about it. Do you need to pray about it? Do you need to receive counsel about it? Has God told you, before you step into it, hear from me? It's just a thought. You got to remember, life is not checkers. It's chess. The difference between checkers and chess is this: that when you jump a part or a player in checkers, eventually, if you get to the other side, you can get that piece back. That's how checkers is played. But I got to tell you something, friends. This, what we're dealing with right now, is not checkers. Life is real, and when something is gone or taken from you that has value, most of the time you cannot get it back, because what it is worth means something not just to you, it means something to somebody else, and if they think it has value, you're going to have to fight like all you know what to try to get it back. Pray about it before you make the decision. Okay? Here's the second piece here about pawns that I want to just share with you. Pawns simply are not worth keeping. They're worth loving. Let me find a different way to say this to you so I can make sense of this. I wrote it down. I didn't want to lose the thought. I wanted to make sure I said it the way I wanted to say it. Listen, pawns are like every person on the board, in that you can't play the game without having it. No chess game starts without having the pawns on the board. In fact, no chess game ever is played without having all the pawns on the board. Can I say something to you about life? It may help. Maybe somebody in the line will get this. Everyone is worth value. Everyone is important. Everyone has a story. Everyone has some love that they need, and everyone has someone who is loved by someone else. So everyone is entitled to dignity and respect and honor and opportunity. We live in a world that doesn't want to play chess because we've decided that some pieces shouldn't be on the board. You notice that? Society is bit by bit trying to say because of this position or this place they came from or this way they look or this way they sound, that some people don't deserve to play the game of life. And I have come through the Spirit of God by Luke 16 as we see as Lazarus and diabetes are even in hell trying to fight for a glass of water, that even in that situation, go on and read it, verses 20 through to 29, what you discover is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords goes through time and space and travels to hell to go visit people who have already been sentenced to death. Can I stop here for a minute and just tell you this one thing? If we have a God who will go to hell to see people who have already been judged just to make sure they're okay, how much more do you have a God that loves you, who will go through life with you to make sure you don't go through hell, but that you have life and have it more abundantly? I need someone to know that regardless of your station and your circumstance, you have a Christ who went through hell and space called crucifixion and paid it all, that he can get to you whenever he needs to help you whenever he needs to care for you whenever he needs to hold you whenever he needs to make sure you're okay. But you gotta let God come to you, because if you don't, he can't help you. Some of us are so busy rejecting God, we don't understand we need grace. You ever met those kind of people who are so self-sufficient about their own ego? Sometimes they stumble over their own second chance, even though they didn't know they did it. Can I give you a real quick story? Some of y'all know I'm a teacher. Well, in my program, I'm offered the opportunity to give makeups. I got this one student who's really smart, but he's arrogant. Watch arrogant people. They always find themselves a way to mess themselves up. This student, listen, has finished my whole course in 4 weeks. Had that kind of program. He was able to advance his work and do it. But what he didn't realize is using AI as a means to finish my class is a sure sign to fail my class. He thought I was going to save him. And I tried to save him. The first week when he finished 30% of the class, I said, you're moving a bit too fast. You haven't even been in my class one day yet still you finished 1:30, you might want to slow down. By the way, can I help you? He said, no, I got it. The second week, he finished all my individual assignments. All of them were wrong. I said, can I help you go through them? I'd like to meet with you. He said, I don't have time to meet with you. I'm going somewhere. Watch this. The third week, Miss Cook, not only did he turn in all the rest of the homework, but he turned it in for a different class And then said to me, oh, I sent you the wrong stuff. Let me send you the right stuff. Because sometimes we know so much, when people try to tell you you've done poorly, you won't even listen then. You've done the wrong stuff. The fourth week, even though we spoke, all I said to him was, just show up for the class. He said, I'm done. There's no need for me to do that. It's over. I'm finished. I don't have time for that. Because sometimes we already know what it is. So, at the end of the fourth week, when I sent his mother a note saying, unfortunately, your son, because of his use of AI, because I have a program that allows me to see what he did and where he got his answers from, you have finished it with the help of your computer. I am not able to fully graduate you. Therefore, you will have to take the whole class advanced level from scratch. It begins now, and because you have finished it so in advance, I am not giving you the rest of the semester. I am only giving you 3 weeks to finish it because you know already what to be done, and so you do it. By the way, you'll have to come into my class live in order to do it because you won't be able to do it online. You know he showed up for the meeting then, right? You know he begged for grace then, right? You know he asked, is there any way you would accept what I've already done, Mr. Benson? All of a sudden now I'm Mr. Benson. Before he didn't have time, but now I'm Mr. Benson. In fact, he gave me a word of a doctor, but he called me Dr. Benson. I don't have it yet, but he was so profound. And in fact, when he showed up, do you notice he had on black pants and a white shirt and a black tie, and he looked like this? And you see, here's my point. Sometimes we reject the God that would give us grace if we would just yield to their presence. Dives and Lazarus in verse 30 through 31. Listen, it was Dives who rejected the grace because he said, if you go home and read the whole passage, he says, I'm entitled to some help. You miss this? I'm entitled to some help. Lazarus takes a different position. He kind of sounds like that person on the cross to the right side of Jesus when Jesus was dying. He said, look, Lord, I know I'm not worthy, but if you would just remember me. You see, sometimes God doesn't want you to cry and weep and have a pity party. Sometimes God is simply saying, remember me. You know the big problem we have in our world when it comes to faith? We're so busy figuring that we know what faith is. We don't remember that we have a Father that will go do anything to help us. I need to tell you something. Last few weeks, I'm almost finished with this message. I've been thinking a lot about my father. I've been thinking about how he would wake up in the morning. I just got to confess it because I'm in church. He would tell my mother he made oatmeal for me. He would lie. He would lie. All I had to do was ask him for a little steak sandwich. And he would wake up and make me my favorite steak sandwich because he knew it would bring joy to my heart. Then he'd tell my mom, oh yeah, I've had an oatmeal. I like oatmeal, but I like steak sandwiches a lot better. Because he wanted to care for me in a way. When he went to work, there were often times where even though my mother was working late at night, in the carefulness of what he could do, he wouldn't leave me with he would take me with him and make sure I was with him every step of the way until my mother came home. Because he wanted to be with me. You see, a father cares and nurtures and provides and goes above and beyond. And a father figure is not simply that person who is a male. Sometimes that's your mother. Sometimes that's your aunt. Sometimes that's your brother. But whatever that figure is, in your human sense, you know who really cares for you. I got to tell you as I close this message, you have a God whose name is Jesus, who went through hell so that you could find your way through this life, that you might have it and have it more abundantly, because you're like the pawn on the chessboard. You matter. Last note, and I'll be finished. It's impossible to play without a pawn on the chessboard. Can I tell you, as much as you may be going through, as difficult as life is right now, as strange as it may feel, I got to tell you something. The God who sits on the circle of the earth is looking down at each one of us, and he simply wants us to remember we matter. And because we matter, he'll move, and because when he moves, heaven and earth must be still, and when he moves, he makes a decision about your best future, and when he moves, he has good things stored up for you, and when he moves, he's going to move mountains for you, and when he moves, he does so because he loves you, and his love can never be conquered or overwhelmed or outcome, because the God that is more than enough. Even when you need a taste of water when you're going through hell, he'll be there in the nick of time, not to let you be taken, but to let you try. That's I got today, with one exception. Remember I told you, think in verse 2 in page 399 of that hymn. I want you to know that Francis Hevegard writes these words that are careful in verse 2. He says, "Take my voice, Lord, and let it sing, always only for you, my King. Take my lips and let them be filled with messages from thee." Watch this. He says, "Take my silver and my gold. Not a mite, nothing will I withhold. Take my intellect and use every power as thou shalt choose." If you have a God that will go through this for you, what can you give to the God that loves you like this? I suggest to you, everything. Let's sing this great hymn of the church. Let's trust that we matter like those pawns on the chessboard. Let's stand and sing verse 2 as we leave this place, but not his presence. Stand with me. Let's sing. And let's sing with great joy in the treasure of God's heart. Let's sing. Take my voice and let me sing, always only for my King. Take my lips and let them be filled with messages from thee. Take my silver and my gold, from I withhold. Take my intellect and use every power as thou shalt choose. Now the hymn is able to keep you from falling, and to ever present you faultless before his throne. To the only wise God, our Savior, with majesty, dominion, authority, and power, both now, henceforth, and forever. God's people did say, God bless you. Take care. See you next week.